So if you've ever been wondering why children's programming is so quote unquote progressive, this could be part of the explanation. We're going to talk about Cocomelon and how the studio that develops Cocomelon is going to apply child development research from UCLA to their content.
Oh boy.
So this is something that has been going on in children's TV for quite some time, right? But you can see as academia shifts further and further left, that content, those ideologies creep into the children's programming, and that kind of leaves us, where we are right now with shows like Cocomelon. They're like, why is there a boy in a tutu with his two dads? I'm like, well, probably input from academia.
Well, that's just it. And unfortunately, as an educator, when it comes to this kind of stuff, they're always doing these and they're usually some funded research, whatever, that they're going to put in. And sometimes you get really great results and things do, help. But then you get things like Common Core, things like, we used to learn how to do reading in one way and then they change it to another way and it's not as effective. And this stuff comes from these academia studies. And when you're going to California and UCLA, they're known for a certain thing.
Yeah, so you could kind of see this in real time. I know Tubi is running, I think it's the first 30-some seasons of Sesame Street. And if you look at the first couple seasons of Sesame Street especially, it was all about the numbers and letters. It just happened to take place in an urban area to connect with the kids that, the show was designed for. Originally was for poor urban kids who didn't have access to the same level of education that their suburban counterparts had. And then, we, of course, paywall Sesame Street behind HBO Max. but you can see the transition over the course of many years.
They're going to put transition in there.
I'm sure they are. Blue's Clues, Pride Parade, the whole thing. Yeah. Moonbug
Entertainment. Okay, just so you know, says we make shows that are more than entertainment. They're tools for learning, exploring, and understanding. It's Trading Moonbug is a British children's media company and multi-channel network headquartered in London with offices in LA. So, no offense, people, but between UCLA and London, in the UK, I'm just like, oh boy.
So why do I think children's programming in particular has taken such a hard left turn over the last couple of years? Is because of where the shows are made and the ideology of the people making the shows and the input that they're getting from academia. It's all a perfect storm. And this led to Netflix getting grilled, actually, during their the hearing to see if they could buy Warner Brothers. And they were getting grilled by Congress people over the amount of progressive themes, amount of gay stuff in the cartoon shows for little kids like 3 and 4. Like if you're making shows for teenagers or even preteens or whatever, that's going to be held to a different standard. But when you're making shows for 3-year-olds,
right,
they
should be focused on shapes, numbers, colors, things like that, and you could put some diversity in there too, because, just in the way of people you may see in your neighborhood type situation, but you don't need to be doing some of that stuff. You know what? The parents will talk to their kids about when they feel like they need to. It's not your job.
So let's talk about this. Before we get into it any further, please subscribe for more pop culture news, views, and rants. Guys, get woohoo if you do. Woohoo! This is Kneon. I am here with Geeky Sparkles.
Hello.
And we are the most hated people in the cartoon commentary space somehow.
It seems like it, yeah.
Because we call it out. We're also parents. Geeky is an educator.
Yes.
We both worked in and around companies like Disney. We kind of see how the thought process works. And if you're looking at kids' cartoons made within the last 5 to 8 years and you're shocked at the content, you're not the only one. A lot of people weren't paying attention to the stuff being kind of snuck into kids' shows, and it is absolutely positively by design. It's intentional.
They used to say that way back, 2012, 2013. And I was like, that's crazy. That's stupid. That's silly. Well, you know what? I don't say that now because after the last, 14 years and the things I've seen, I'm like, you're 100% correct. That's exactly what they did.
And then you've got one of the most popular children's show host out there, Ms. Rachel. She's going on a bender about politics and stuff. So it's like the whole scene is basically been commandeered by activists. And a lot of people, I'm going to tell you the truth, and this goes back to when we were doing, graphic novels and stuff. A lot of people producing children's entertainment aren't actually parents. Like they've never
No,
had
that happens
kids.
a lot. And
Yes.
it's more about, well, at least for a while there in like 2016 to 2022 or so, it was more about putting your own agenda into shows. Because this is a show I wish I could have watched when I was little. And I'm like, but you don't need to worry about that. And you mean by little, you mean when you were like 15 or 16. That's not the same
I know,
thing
right? Yeah, these
as,
children's
show.
These quote unquote children's show. There's a whole era, and I think people are going to look back on this era, the Tumblr era of animation, especially, and look back at all these quote unquote children's shows that were basically adult fan fiction disguised as children's shows, and the executives that greenlit them in a lot of cases didn't know better. They didn't know what they were actually getting themselves into.
Princesses of Power, she deliberately was the one who chose it. The one.
Well, that was the DreamWorks lady.
Yeah, because she was like LGBTQ herself, and from my understanding, Stevenson's actual original pitch was nothing like what we got. That was her pushing that shit. So yes, and they bragged about it. We've seen them on like different like Zoom calls or something they had back in the day, including Disney ones. Yeah, where people from those companies were bragging about how they were doing it on purpose.
We're gonna take your kids. We're gonna take your kids away from you. We're gonna all this crazy shit.
Oh, the schools are. Now here's the thing. Look, do I think representation in like teenager young adult content, that's fine. You know what I mean? You can agree or disagree, that's fine. I just think when they're older, they can tell the difference. They know, they understand it. But we're talking like preschool and little kids. And the problem here is if you go down this article, it's UCLA. And their argument is, these are a lot of times, they have like all kinds of grant money to do this shit. They're trying to prove, they're trying to find, they claim, ways to engage children. So they're saying children are watching more devices than ever. Agreed. Mm-hmm. We got to find a way to, children will learn if you give them the right things. Listen, children are going to learn whether you give them the right things or not. That's just your way of justifying getting your grant. But their point is that if you know how children learn, you can present things to them in a specific way via your show to help them learn. I would say that for Shapes, Color, Sesame Street did it for years.
Right.
That kind of stuff. The problem becomes when it's UCLA, you see UCLA there.
Yes.
I get a little concerned. Well, let's get them young. We'll just incorporate it into their learning via the methods we've discovered that are the most successful.
UCLA was the same. I'm pretty sure they were the same university that was complaining that there weren't enough female-led movies or something, and they're all about the gender studies and the racial inequality and the whatever. And I'm not saying everybody from UCLA is trash. I'm not saying every study from UCLA is
I'm
trash.
not saying that.
It's just they're I believe
they have a reputation for a reason.
They have a reputation for a reason. As a media observer and a parent, you can usually start to draw the connections between a person's political ideology or gender ideology or a fascination, obsession with gender and identity to the content they produce. And in a lot of ways, a lot of these people get them young, get into little kids' content.
I want to know who funded this, because it's like if you have studied this and you're trying to figure out how to determine which ways you can make education stick more via devices and stuff, and get them when they're this young to learn. Who funded this? Because that's another thing I want to know. Because if it's an educational firm funding it, I mean, it's not as bad. They're still trying to sell stuff, but it's not as bad. But their outcomes are going to probably be biased based on the funding source.
Well, let's look at it. This is the Center for Scholars and Storytellers at UCLA.
Well, that's a partnership.
Yep. So going out, so this is the partnership they have, like right on the front page. If you go like here, they have like they're dissecting Wuthering Heights, what it says about broken relationships, Gen Z's evolving masculinity. Let's see what else they got on here.
I was more interested in this one. Girls and Women and Kids Media Tip Sheet. They're right there in the write-up. They're talking about the female characters, agency, diverse bodies, LGBTQ plus representation.
Yep. And disabled.
This is tied to UCLA, and it's tied to girls and women, kids shows. They're flat out saying, because they're trying to tie entertainment to education.
And this is who's going to be funding or who's going to be advising Moonbug on their shows.
Look at their work. Okay, creating for teens. Go up to their work. What does it say there? Like, does it have anything there?
Work, conversation on youth well-being representation. This reminds me of a video game, consultancy. like Sweet Baby Inc.
Kinda.
Or like sensitivity readers, because they're talking about their script and creative consulting, original research.
Well, what's this panel discussions and viewer resources? Like, what's this stuff?
Screenings, panel discussions, and so they'll probably like screen your kids shows for a handful of people in LA.
94% of young people report using second devices when watching TV. So they're basically saying they're doing this for kids, but they're doing it for the young people too. Go up to the storyteller resources. What's that have? I'm just saying, there's obviously
I'm sure. 100%.
There's obviously some
COVID-19.
It's a little dated.
Yeah, foster care and adoption, mental health,
Parenting.
Gender and sexuality. There it is, guys. I'm sure.
So I'm just saying, this is the group that's working with UCLA.
Yeah.
Do I think it's going to be solely geared to how children learn and what we can do to make sure that when they're seeing stuff on devices like Cocomelon or different shows, that it can enhance learning? No, because they're not going to just do that. They're going to be like, what sticks the most, and how can we put agenda in there?
Yeah, because you go out to their own website, and it looks like that is what they're hyper focused on. Is basically getting to kids and hitting them upside the head with the ideology.
So in 2023, that CSS we just looked at conducted an in-depth analysis of Moonbug's programming and process, including interviews with creative teams, episode analysis, and collaboration with advisory council of academic experts. You wipe your ass with that one as a teacher. The Research Center also conducted a comprehensive review of peer-reviewed research on early childhood learning. Based on that work, CSS has developed 4 core learning principles that Moonbug will apply. The principles, which focus on illustrating what developmentally appropriate content looks like. Okay, developmentally appropriate. There's no room for agenda and developmentally appropriate content for children, like young children, but they'll find a way. They're going to make it public later this spring. So they're not saying what that is.
Well, okay, so this is interesting though, because again, Cocomelon's on Netflix now, right? And Netflix got hammered. Is it? I mean, I'm just spitballing here, but could it be that they might actually surprise us and go the opposite direction and be like, don't do these things?
I hope so.
That would be refreshing.
I really hope so.
Because
like I said, depending on the age.
You can
get away with it in older kids programming.
We're
talking young children. They said make sure the learning is clear and age appropriate. But it also could be, how can we shape these episodes to reinforce learning? And here's what we're teaching.
Well, okay, so here's the thing. Like normally, I'm trying to give them the benefit of the doubt here. But when we've got Cocomelon being put on blast for, a kid prancing around in a tutu, and again, this isn't a show for older kids. This is a show for toddlers. They're going to look at everything that they see on screen.
To be fair, there are a lot of little kids, boys and girls, that will just dress up whatever. I mean, I've seen many a little boy who ends up being no issues there, that are dressing up and like wearing like their mom, because their mom wears shoes, so they want to wear her shoes or something like that. It happens all the time. They want to carry a baby doll around. There's like, when I was a kid, we were all allowed to have whatever. Like, I was allowed to play with boys' toys and girls' toys. We're fine. Actually, I think that when people don't allow kids the opportunity to play across, different quote unquote gendered toys, they end up with more weirdness, because that's a forbidden toy. But I'm just saying that little kids will do that, and it doesn't mean anything.
That's a whole nother issue. Like Gen X, I mean, we actually, I would say our toys were, they were definitely kind of across the aisle. I mean, the Care Bears, the Cabbage Patch Kids.
No one thought anything of it. And then and I think that when you prohibit it, it actually causes more problems later on. But in the case of age appropriate, little kids dressing up in outfits, that's not unusual at all.
I was ahead of the curve, man. I did not misgender Funshine Bear. The only Care Bear I had was a Funshine Bear. And I picked Funshine Bear because I thought he was a boy. And it turned out he was a she. But then later on, I was right. I knew Funshine Bear was in the closet.
It was coded.
He was coded male, because Funshine Bear, every other iteration of Care Bears after that, he was a boy. And I'm like, damn it, I knew I picked a boy Care Bear and not a girl Care Bear, because he had boy Care Bear energy.
My first one was Cheer Bear because I liked her rainbow and she was pink. But,
Well,
anyway,
I mean something else now.
Anyway, I'm just saying, it's like, the dressing up thing, that kids do that all the time. Like, I'm not gonna piss on that, because I know for a fact, as a mom and a teacher, little kids do that all the time, and that's fine. The problem is when you start presenting it as not just presenting it as, oh, we want to dress up today, but presenting it as, oh, if you dress up like this, that means that you may lean this way. And that's when there's a problem.
Yeah. So that's the thing that, and people really misrepresent what we say on this show. And we have always said, like, there's age appropriate content, and I'm not.
That's just it. Like, if it's age appropriate, and they said they're focused on age appropriateness.
But when you're pushing this kind of stuff, and we've seen a push more and more and more over the years, with a lot of this content into shows like, Blue's Clues and Cocomelon, where, I mean, they had, like drag queens in a pride parade and Blue's Clues. And again, this is a show for toddlers. We're not talking about, hey, we've got a gay character in a show for, 8 and up even, or, 10 and up or 12 and up or teens or whatever. We're talking,
I would argue that would be more like 12 and up or something,
Yeah, we're talking full blown drag queens and pride parades in Blue's Clues, and they're listening. In a lot of ways, they're listening to these, different colleges, university people, think tanks, telling them what to put in. We've seen it, in Sesame Street, especially. Like, Sesame Street, I don't think has gone as off the rails as some of these other shows, but like, they're dealing more with social issues now and social justice issues now, and they did not do that before. It was strictly like numbers and letters, and
that's what it needs to be. I think
just getting along with people in your neighborhood. And
if you're targeting the preschool children, even I would say kids under 12, it needs to be, you have two different groups, like the preschool, early education, early childhood education, shapes, colors, numbers, things like that. You can go into a little bit more of the social stuff when you get like past the preschool, early childhood, not like out and out, flat out, that kind of stuff. But you can go a little bit past that into like, there are some different things, here's some different themes that might be age appropriate. And then when you hit 12 and up, you can of course go a lot deeper into those things. Not literally, even though Hollywood loves to.
Yeah.
It's just like, it's almost like, let's get them young and make sure that we can.
Yeah, I wouldn't have. I mean, here's the thing, because what they're saying, like, I wouldn't have thought anything of it. If it wasn't for the fact, I wouldn't have paid as much attention if it wasn't for the fact that Cocomelon specifically has already come under fire for not being age appropriate, right? So they said the research center will also help shape story ideas and episode themes and review scripts and early cuts of episodes to ensure learning is clear and age appropriate.
Okay, what gets me is they're not saying what their core or 4 key whatever are. They're not saying that. And I, as a teacher, I want to know what those are, because so far you're speaking teacher speak, and I understand what you're saying. But like, that's all great and good, but what 4 core principles are you teaching to?
As YouTube and other decentralized digital platforms have become the primary content delivery methods for children, the Moonbug and CSS partnership aims to maintain those standards in a new media ecosystem. Basically, YouTube is the Wild West.
Well, go back up. Here's what got me. Come back up here. Okay, this paragraph here. As more preschoolers spend time on digital platforms, parents and creators are asking more urgent questions about what quality screen time actually means. They're saying, this is, of course, somebody who's the CEO of CSS. Yeah. Research shows children can learn from online video. Yes, but only when it's designed to teach child development mind. No, that's not true. They'll learn from whatever you give them. You're just going to want to give them more quality content to learn from. It's not about how it'll learn, but only when it's designed in a certain way. Yes and no. Okay, our work with Moonbug is about bringing research and storytelling closer together, and we see this as an ongoing commitment, translating research principles, which you aren't telling what they are, into a production environment takes a sustained effort, and a real measure of success will be how consistently these principles shape creative principles over time. You're speaking in circles. What are the principles? You're not telling
they're not. That's the thing. They're like, hey, guys, we're going to do this. We're going to make sure that the kids' shows are age appropriate, whatever.
This is also the way you keep talking in circles to keep your funding, too, by the way. I mean, it's not just, I mean, all I'm seeing is teacher bullshit speak in circles to keep your funding.
People weren't paying attention to this. We were paying attention to this because, we speak cartoon, but it has become so obvious that even normies that don't follow cartoons have noticed that the little kids shows in particular have gotten weird. Now, I have a theory there. I think that part of it is because the more age appropriate cartoons that would be like your Steven Universes and your Gravity Falls and whatever, that stuff's not getting greenlit like it was before. They're all pivoting to little kids cartoon content. And these people still want to see themselves represented in the content. so they're naturally gonna.
I don't know if they want to see themselves represented as much as they want to see the content made so that, you know, it's exposed to children so that they can expose to children. You know what I'm saying? Or they can expose to children so they can, you know, increase their numbers. Because they used to come out flat out and say that's what they're trying to do. And I was like, what? It has to be age appropriate. And it's up to parents, too.
I think that's the biggest takeaway, and that's actually how the Netflix CEO how he deflected when they were getting grilled on and stuff. Is he's like, you know, parents have a right to not watch shows, but I'm like, you know, it is on the parents too. I'm gonna tell you, it's on the parents. If you just plop your kid in front of Nickelodeon or in front of, you know, Disney Channel, and you think that, you know, nothing objectionable is going to be on that because it never has been in the past, that's what a lot of parents are thinking. Like, oh, it's like when I was a kid, and then they're walking in on the Blue's Clues Pride Parade or whatever, you know, special, and they're gonna be like, what the hell did
they had
what
the
happened?
Strawberry Shortcake character too, and the
Strawberry Shortcake. I'm like, it's Strawberry Shortcake. Like, again, you know, I don't give a shit as much. I think it's weird, but whatever. If it's in programming for older kids, when you're going after toddlers, though, it's weird. So I'm just saying, we'll see where this goes. I have a sneaking suspicion based on their website that we know where it's going to go, though.
Yeah, I mean, it could be completely, you know, not that way, but it just seems to me that we're going to reveal this later. I'm like, why can't you reveal it now?
Because
I don't know. We'll see what
parents will pay. We're going to reveal it later after all the uproar about Netflix content, kids content has died down.
I don't know. I just, because of who the research places are, it gives me pause. That doesn't mean that they're going to say that. They're going to say things that are questionable. But because of who they are, I immediately am like, I'm going to question this research right from the get-go. And we'll see how they apply it. That's going to matter too.
All right, we're going to wrap this up.
Yes.
Please subscribe for more pop culture news, views, and rants. We'll talk later.
Bye.